Welcome to the WingSpace Podcast, a place to take up space, where we talk about all things wellness, from nutrition to movement to sleep and stress, and so much more. With me, your host, Jennifer Voorhaar, along with special guests and experts within our Hope and Healing wellness community. Let's jump in.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the WingSpace Podcast, a place to take up space, and welcome to Season 6. I am excited today to have some guests with me here on the podcast, Carlin and Tracy and Les, and so glad that you guys are here. As always, if you can like and subscribe to our podcast, we really appreciate all the shares. The idea behind this podcast came from just wanting to give people little nuggets of information because we know not everybody's going to find themselves in a therapy office. And if we can share just little bits of information and people can take things away, that's the ultimate goal. So we're glad you're here. Ladies, I'm glad you're here with me. How about we just take a minute and let each of you introduce who you are and what you do? I will start by saying, my name is Jennifer Voorhaar. I am the host of this podcast and the owner of Hope and Healing Therapy and Wellness Center. So how about you, Carlin?
Yeah, sure. I'm Carlin Sizer. I'm a pelvic health physical therapist in the area, and I treat women in their homes individually, one-on-one services, but I also teach a prenatal and postnatal group PT exercise class at Hope and Healing and have been a part of the very first F.L.A.M.E perimenopause menopause group exercise class too.
Awesome. So glad to have you here. Tracy.
Hi, so my name's Tracy Pritchard, and I am a certified nutrition specialist, licensed to practice in Maryland. So I do work at Hope and Healing doing individual nutrition consults. And not only was I a staff member on the first Hope and Healing F.L.A.M.E, but I was also a participant.
All right, Les, I'll let you round out the introductions.
Okay, I'm Leslie. I'm the marketing director for Hope and Healing and often involved with a lot of program development. So while I'm not in person for the facilitation of the F.L.A.M.E series, I help to put things together, and it's been great to watch this program develop with everybody.
Awesome. So before we dive into what F.L.A.M.E was and is going forward, Les, you were the mastermind behind F.L.A.M.E and what it stands for. So can you just tell our listeners a little bit about what F.L.A.M.E is?
Sure. So when we started to think about doing some programming specifically for the perimenopause, menopause community in our area, we had this vision or sort of theme going with Wonder Woman or Superwoman and how women are doing so many things every single day. We have demands on our time, our bodies, our energy, and wanted to celebrate the strength of women for handling those kinds of demands. So when we were thinking about superheroes and that sort of theme, I was developing graphics. I kept seeing fire in all of these graphics. And then I'm thinking hot flash. And then how can we kind of tie this all together? And so I thought about the word flame, but not just as the word flame, more like an acronym that could stand for something that we were trying to implement with the program. So FLAME is an acronym. The F stands for fuel, which is Tracy's department. She's our certified nutritionist, and whatever phase of menopause you're in and whatever phase of life you're in, really, food is a huge contributor to our wellness. The L stands for learn. We're definitely learning, not just from our own experiences, but when we're in community like this, we can all learn from one another's experiences as well. A stands for adapt, for a transitional phase of life. We're making changes to our daily routines, expectations that we have over ourselves and our bodies. And the M, which is Carlin's department, for movement. She's helping us out with very specific movement and strengthening foundation building exercises to respond to the changes in a way that's healthy and sustainable for us. And then finally, the E of FLAME stands for empower, which sort of ties us back to the community element of FLAME, where we are hoping to empower ourselves to get out there, do something differently, show up for this phase of life with a purpose and maybe differently than we've seen it done in generations past. And by empowering ourselves, we're empowering each other. So that's the F.L.A.M.E, and that's where the name comes from.
That is a great way to describe it, and much more than I would have given. So thanks for sharing all of that information and really all that the community has seen in terms of the marketing and images and things really came from your mind, which I'm so incredibly grateful for. So I don't remember which one of us was the original person, I guess, late winter, early spring that said, hey, this is a thing and we need to do something about it. But Tracy, you and I were probably the first ones that started having these conversations. Would you say that it became kind of like the hallway discussion that we were having?
I definitely think so. Because I mean, I'm 51, so there you go. And it's just interesting. It's like the latest hot topic, but it's really not new. I mean, women have been aging since the beginning of time, but it's really all over social media, regular media. Like it's a conversation that has become out in the open. And so we thought, well, why not do it locally, like in person, not just stuff that we read on blogs or through a social media influencer. So we were like, hey, why not bring it home?
Yeah. And, I'm 47. I always have to hesitate and actually count because I forget, after you get to a certain age, I guess it doesn't matter. But, at 47, I have friends that I've known since high school and we get together once a month and we have dinner and we chat and this conversation doesn't come up. And I see you're right, with all of the social media information out there right now, we need to start talking about this. We need to have those connections and collaborations and kind of laugh at each other and support each other and learn ways to get through this stage and phase of life in a way that is different. And our WhatsApp group is called Not Your Mama's Menopause because our moms didn't talk about it.
I agree. Although I will have to say, as your young friend group gathers, give yourselves a couple more years, and these conversations do become a little more prevalent. Just because here we are. So.
But it's funny that you say that because I think it was a couple months ago, the conversation started about how I had forgotten to bring my glasses, so I couldn't see the menu. And then we were, commiserating about needing glasses. And then somebody said, is anybody going to order wine? And then somebody else said, oh, if I have wine this late at night, I'll never sleep tonight. And so they're having this conversation and it was like, wow, here it is, it's starting. So it's great to start to have those conversations. And obviously, the movement piece and the physical health aspect of it is something that I think some people just consider it as part of aging, but there's really much more we can do about it than just let our bodies fall apart, right, Carlin?
Yeah. So once you're postpartum, you're always postpartum, and you don't even have to have carried a baby to have any sort of symptoms. Sometimes they can be new pelvic floor symptoms that are arising during this change of time when your estrogen is dropping tremendously, or unresolved pelvic floor symptoms can be exacerbated now at this time. And yeah, you're right. You don't have to accept it and think, oh, well, I used to be able to run and now I just can't run anymore. Or whenever I sneeze or laugh, now I leak and I didn't used to, now I have all this pressure and I can't work out or I don't even know what to do. But it doesn't have to be that way. So that's another great part about this class is if you're struggling with not being able to do things you used to, or you're just noticing changes or things are getting worse than they were before, you can do something about it. We can learn, we can try new things. And it's a great way to come together and yeah, that can be part of your conversation with your friends is, I didn't used to leak or now I feel this and I don't know what to do, but you can do something about it. It doesn't have to be that way.
I too was a facilitator and participant in our first round. And I remember in one of the classes, Carlin, you were talking about how so many of us women habitually suck in, to make our stomachs look thinner. And that's really a thing. And what's interesting is that I actually have started looking around at, 20 to 30-year-old women that are not doing that, right? Like I almost feel like they have a healthier body image concept and accepting the fact that like there's some rounding in our bodies naturally and that's okay. And there's so much information out there about physical movement and lifting weights and proper form is shared, but it's not always proper form that is shared relative to this age group and the way we have to support our pelvic floor. And it's not just sucking in and tightening our gut.
Right. Yes, that's not a good strategy. That will actually make things worse because when we think about our pressure system, if you are bearing down to lift a load, then you're just, something's going to come out maybe. And so we do think about, okay, during this time frame, osteopenia can be a thing. We're thinking about our bone density, and Tracy talked about that too, as far as how nutrition can help improve that. But then when it comes to exercise, we understand that loading our joints and using weights is really important for that. But sometimes if maybe we haven't exercised in a while, and we know, "Oh, I need to get back to the gym, I need to lift weights, but I don't know how, because if I do it hurts or it doesn't feel good." So part of this class too was laying down a foundation of good movement patterns, understanding what does it even feel like to breathe under a brace. How do I even breathe? How do I breathe into my back and use my diaphragm and feel what's going on at my pelvic floor? How do I load my hips? How do I prepare to move on to exercise on my own? So it's kind of like a rehab focused movements that are preparing you for bearing more load and more weight to feel like you're having a good exercise program that's going to be beneficial for you. So kind of just even starting with how to breathe, how to move, how to feel things, and progressing from there.
As someone who enjoyed your stuff, Carlin, I'll say that for someone who I've been moving all along, right? Like I've always been active but I've never done what you taught us. And it was like, oh, look, I can learn something new, structure, function. But I think there's women in their 40s and 50s who, life got busy and they haven't been moving at all. And then they get on social media and they see a super like strong is the new skinny, which is great. But we can't go from I haven't moved my body in a long time to doing the arm workout of the super buff 55-year-old who does it as a full-time job. And I think too often because of the comparison thing and all that, we're like, oh, I can't do that, so I'll do nothing. Or in fact, they maybe in fact just need Carlin, right? So
Also, maybe just a space in which they're not feeling like they are either comparing themselves or being compared, because so much of all of the different things that we see online every day, to your point, Tracy, with social media, a lot of physical activity and exercise has almost become somewhat performative. Even yoga, it seems like it's something that is shown to us because of the shapes that our bodies are making, the way that it looks. And I think it's really probably empowering, but also just freeing in general to be able to show up in a space that's smaller, it's intimate, not these 20-foot ceilings, these clunky weights, this loud music. You're with others that are interested in the same things that you are, and you're strengthening without having to worry about what does this look like. I think that's a big perk of the program.
a huge perk. I mean, we have a doctor of physical therapy that is giving us the advice. So I'm smarter, not harder. When Carlin says, hey, let me adjust you or, do this or that, like I trust her for that.
Plus, you really hit on the whole concept of what our studio is all about. Some people might say, oh, well, we don't need another exercise gym or studio or whatever in the Leonardtown area. And we are working from a mental health perspective with people who are healing from, I'll just say it the way I say it to my clients. Life throws crap our way sometimes that we either don't know how to handle or don't have the tools to handle, or the tools we had just don't work. And so our studio is a safe place where we are not comparing and, oh, that person's lifting this amount of weight, I'm going to lift a heavier amount of weight. This person did this many push-ups, I'm going to do this many push-ups. There's not mirrors on the wall for very specific reasons. And it is a small, intimate space because for people who have experienced any kind of trauma, but specifically some of the traumas we work with, which are people who have had trauma against their body, a big, huge open space is not a safe space, doesn't feel safe. And having a class with 20 or 30 people doesn't feel safe. But if you're in a class with 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 other people, it does feel like a safe space. So for the people that might want to participate in future classes, I did want to spend just a couple minutes kind of recapping what we did in the first series. And Carlin, you already mentioned the PT aspect of it. And for those that might consider attending the next series, there is an exercise class included. We did have one of our participants that, came from work, and she said it was either come in my work clothes or not come at all. Here I am. And she was able to do the class in her work clothes, but commented that, she wished she maybe had had her exercise clothes. So there is an exercise component. It's about 45 to 50 minutes. Anything else you want to add about that exercise piece, Carlin?
Yes, come as you are. We are not going to be getting super sweaty. All of the movements are very intentional and learning and rehab-like, but we do start to progress towards more traditional fitness movements. But everything has pelvic floor and core in mind. Nothing is crazy intense, but it is a lot of mind-body connection work.
And I just want to reiterate the come as you are. If you are a 40, 50-year-old, younger, older woman who hasn't exercised in years, this is for you. If you are a woman of that same age range that has been exercising your whole life, this class is for you because it is solely focused on the strengthening, the flexibility, the proper use of that pelvic floor core area. And we also included in the class the mental health component because, I will basically say that sometimes it feels like I'm losing my mind. The forgetfulness, the brain fog, the irritability and the mood swings and the changes that happen from kind of a cognitive emotional standpoint. So we've included the mental health piece of coping with this stage of life. So I and another one of our therapists, we touched on what it means to take care of yourself and some habit formation, some discussion of mental overload and emotional load, which was a new concept for a lot of people. So I'm excited to continue to share that idea. And also the community connection and the conversations that we had with like-minded individuals who were experiencing similar things. I think our youngest participant was in her late 30s and our oldest participant was in her early 60s. And we all understood where everyone was coming from. And that was such a refreshing and energizing experience for me. So the trifecta, working with a doctor of physical therapy in Carlin's pelvic floor work, and the mental health piece. And then we have nutrition as well. Tracy, do you want to share on what did that look like in the class?
I think it was week 2. I had some more time to share some nutrition tips. And part of that was really going over what does a balanced meal plan look like for someone in perimenopause or menopause, and what does that even mean, right? Like what kind of nutrients are we looking at? Also, some popular resources out there. I mean, there's some good cookbooks out there. There's authors that are writing about this phase of life that I have reviewed and do recommend for people that want to continue learning, beyond what we do in the class. Also, I use some time during one of the weeks to talk about supplements, which supplements are, I'll say, common. There's no one size fits all though, because a lot of people have other things going on as well. But where to find those supplements, we have our full script that we use at Hope and Healing, and letting people know that I can make individual recommendations. But for those who just want general recommendations, we can point them in that direction. So just how it all comes together. And again, this isn't the diet mentality that we grew up with or our mothers grew up with, right? And just learning to nourish our body, fuel our body, and be comfortable with that and understanding. So it's all evidence based. Like I'm not, calorie counter or anything else, but, just looking at the big picture of how to do that for longevity, for long-term success.
I think that's a really important connection between what you're primarily there to offer, Tracy, and also Jen. I mean, all three of your services and offerings within the F.L.A.M.E complement each other perfectly. But there's something really specific, I think, about the nutrition with the mental health for these specific generations of women. I think that is really important to have each of you to have those conversations and to help the unlearning of some of the more out of pocket things that used to be very common. You were full of them, Tracy, when I asked for the cringiest nutrition cliches a few months ago for some social media content. And, we grew up hearing things like nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And just a couple words, they stick with you your whole life. And it really might require more than just implementing a meal plan or something to unlearn some of those more deeply ingrained ideals that have just been with us for generations.
I had a client who was not a participant in F.L.A.M.E, but could have been, like that age group, same type of things. And during a session the other day, she said, like I've been meal planning and I look at it at the fridge and my family's enjoying it. They're asking, they're getting involved. But the number one thing she took away from it is that how it lightened her mental load, because she could be like, oh, Thursday, I already know what I'm having. So the mental health and nutrition piece go together in more ways than one, not just the food nourishing our brain, but just having the plan. Right now it's really popular to talk about the medical treatment of weight loss or menopause. And that's something between people, folks and their doctors, how they want to do that. But we have a whole generation of our mothers who suffer from osteoporosis and cognitive decline, but never asked why. So now, from a wellness perspective, we're hitting on the food, movement, sleep, stress, and the things that people have some control over, no matter what their genetics are.
Yeah, we really focus on the 5 pillars of wellness, something that we developed earlier this year as kind of our foundation for the work that we do through the wellness services, the wellness wing at Hope and Healing, and what we share on this podcast, because those are all of the things that people say we, quote, should do, but really the things that our body needs fall within those 5 pillars of wellness that Tracy just mentioned. And undoing the rhetoric that came from our parents' generation. I'm not going to blame all of our moms for it. It was that generation. Doesn't work, right? Calories in, calories out, just eat less and move more, just do more cardio. I trained for a half marathon in 2024 and I gained weight. So, I was doing a lot of cardio and gained weight because my body isn't responding the same way that it used to through this stage and phase of life. And having a place where we can talk about that is the whole purpose behind the F.L.A.M.E series and this community that we are creating. So we are planning to offer this series again in the fall. Les, can you provide our listeners with the details of the dates of that series?
Yes, sure. So September 16th is the start of our next 6-week series. It's going to take place in the Hope and Healing Leonardtown location within the studio there. And maybe we'll be outside a little bit if weather permits. And each session of the series will build upon the last, and each session of the series will have a component from each of the facilitators. So there will be a movement portion with Carlin to kick us off, and that will be followed by a nutrition portion from Tracy with tips and tricks, supplement information. I think we also talk about the way that we eat in addition to what we eat. Then Jen with the mental health and opportunity to kind of connect, bounce ideas off of one another, unpack some thoughts or experiences that we've all been able to share within the arena of menopause. And there's also, I think, more of an emphasis on sort of celebrating and welcoming a new phase of life, shifting the conversation and saying, man, we've come a really long way in this life. Here we are. We're being thrown this other obstacle. Let's tackle this together in a way that feels aligned with our health, not like we're fighting against our body, but in a way that we're working with it and with each other, and, having this space to really fully exist in this next chapter and not shrink it, not be ashamed of it, but come together and have some fun.
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize it. And in ensuring that we are celebrating it, we end each of our classes with, what is something we learned, and what is something that we loved, and what is something that we're going to live out, what is something we're going to take with us and put into practice. We spend some time talking about myths and misconceptions about perimenopause and menopause. And we make sure that we're touching on the things that the class wants. So while we have created a curriculum for the class participants, we will be able to kind of mold and shift the content from mine and Tracy's perspective specifically to be able to meet their needs. And one change that we have made for this upcoming series is, instead of trying to kind of cram in the mental health and the nutrition in all of the sessions, we're going to divide it out a little bit so that there will be a couple of weeks where you have more time. The participants will have more time with Tracy to really dive into some of the nutrition stuff. And then there'll be a couple of weeks where it'll just be me or one of our other therapists to really dive into the mental health and wellness, mental wellness components. Each week, of course, is going to have the foundation of Carlin's physical therapy work, and that's really vital to this piece of wellness. So I'm really excited to start again. I'm excited for the fall and the next group. Carlin or Tracy, do either of you want to add anything else for our listeners, maybe why they should attend, or maybe even someone who attended the last series, if they want to attend again?
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed our time together, learning so much from Tracy, learning so much from Jen. I would say that yes, social media does kind of confuse us. It's hard to decipher what is best to do. You might think you fit into certain categories and you go down a path and it's not working. So meeting in person with real professionals that are local to you is a really great place to start and learn firsthand from the source. And then you don't have to worry about what you're reading and seeing. You have Jen, you have Tracy, and you have myself to help you get started. And also, yes, the studio at Hope and Healing is a really wonderful space. I love being there. It's very calming. And then also being surrounded by other women that you can joke around with and support each other it's a great way to get started. If you find yourself in this journey and you don't know how to start or what to do, it's a great place to learn, meet other women who are like you, and just be involved in the community too.
Right now, especially in the fall, a lot of women this age are also busy with work, or they have kids and sports or music. This is a weeknight. This is Tuesday, 16th. So it's setting aside some Tuesdays. And if you can't, we'd love for you to be at all of them. But if you know you can't make one of them, that's okay. But also, we're hoping that as time goes on and we have more participants, that we can do some informal, like reunions of sort, and just, meet up with each other in town, or, maybe, I don't know if it would be maybe a one-off class at the studio, just to reinforce the community and that you're part of something bigger now.
I'd also like to throw in that I don't know of any other place that you can spend 90 minutes intimately engaged with a certified nutritionist, a doctor of physical therapy, and an LCSWC, compiling all of these services into that 90 minutes for 6 weeks, once a week. It really provides something for people who maybe they have been thinking about seeing a therapist, but they haven't made the appointment yet. Maybe they have been thinking about the nutritionist appointment that they want to put on the calendar. And this could be the springboard for figuring out, okay, where do I want to take my wellness journey next? I think it can definitely help eliminate that overwhelm. If you're like me and you like to do lots of things at once and feel like you've checked many boxes all at the same time, I think this is a great way to do it. As of the date that this is being published, which is Wednesday, September 3rd, we are still in our early bird registration. So early bird registration is going to run through the 8th, which is coming up on Monday. And it's $179 per participant for all 6 sessions. So it breaks down to less than $30 per session. And you have all three of these health and wellness professionals at your fingertips for 90 minutes, plus the bonus of getting to be with your community members, meet some new people, share space with other locals and other women that are navigating this change of life with you.
And I think that that's a great way to sum up our podcast episode for today. In the show notes, you'll have an opportunity to find the link to sign up. As always, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, our website, hopehealingtherapy.com. And if you listened to this and you thought, man, I really want to share this with my girlfriends, then please share this, encourage them to like and subscribe to the podcast as well, and consider joining us for the next series of F.L.A.M.E. So Carlin and Tracy and Les, thanks so much for joining me today. To our listeners, thanks for spending some time with us, and I hope you guys all have a great day.